At 10:37 on a Tuesday night, I found a folded sticky note inside my daughter's diaper bag. It was pale yellow, the cheap kind you buy in a pack of 12 at Walmart, curled at the edges from being pressed between wipes and burp cloths. I almost threw it away. I thought it was a grocery list or one of those appointment reminders my wife, Sarah, tucked into every bag because she didn't trust her phone calendar. Then I opened it. "She has your smile. I thought about you both all day." No name, no signature, just those 10 words. I was standing in our laundry room with one hand inside a bag of damp baby clothes and the other holding a note that made the walls feel like they had moved closer together. Behind me, the dryer clicked and turned. In the kitchen, the dishwasher hummed. Upstairs, my wife was giving our 8-month-old daughter a bath, singing the same soft song she sang every night. "You are my sunshine." Except suddenly, nothing in my house felt warm. I read the note again. "She has your smile." Not "she has his smile." Not "your daughter is beautiful." Your smile. My name is Martin Cole. I was 54 years old that fall, old enough to know better than to panic over one piece of paper, but old enough to understand when something ordinary was trying very hard not to look suspicious. I owned a small hardware store in Traverse City, Michigan, Cole & Sons Hardware, even though I didn't have sons, and my father had been dead 9 years. The sign out front still had his name beneath mine, because I never had the heart to paint over it. I was not a dramatic man. I knew furnace filters, storm doors, deck screws, snow shovels, and the exact type of old men who came in on Saturday mornings just to argue about lawnmower oil. I did not know what to do with a secret note in my baby daughter's diaper bag. Sarah and I had been married 19 years. 19 years of mortgage payments, bad coffee, lake effect snow, Christmas lights that never worked the first time, and 6 failed attempts to become parents before Lily finally arrived. That was our daughter's name, Lily Grace Cole, 8 months old. Brown hair that stuck straight up after baths. One dimple in her left cheek. A laugh so sudden and bright, it could make strangers turn around in grocery store aisles. For years, Sarah and I tried to have a child. We went to fertility clinics in Grand Rapids. We sat in waiting rooms full of couples, pretending not to stare at each other's grief. We paid bills with money we did not have. We learned words no married couple should have to learn unless they absolutely must. Follicles, retrieval, embryo grading, failed implantation. I watched my wife become a calendar of needles and hope. And when Lily was born, I thought every painful year had finally been redeemed. That's what makes betrayal so cruel. It doesn't break the bad years first. It reaches back and poisons the good ones. I folded the note carefully and slipped it into my shirt pocket. Then I walked upstairs. Sarah was kneeling beside the bathtub, sleeves rolled above her elbows, hair clipped messily on top of her head. Lily sat in the plastic baby seat, slapping both palms against the water like she was conducting an orchestra. Sarah looked up and smiled. "Can you grab the hooded towel?" I stood there a second too long. "Martin?" "Yeah," I said. "Of course." I handed her the towel. My fingers brushed hers. She didn't flinch. She didn't look guilty. She looked tired, beautiful, ordinary. That made it worse, because if she had looked guilty, at least the world would have made sense. Later that night, after Sarah fell asleep, I went downstairs and searched the diaper bag again. I found nothing. No second note, no receipt. No strained hotel key card, no dramatic evidence like people find in movies. Just pacifiers, baby socks, a half-empty container of Tufts, and a tiny pink sweater that smelled like milk and laundry soap. But I couldn't let it go. The next morning, while Sarah made oatmeal for Lily, I asked casually, "Did someone put a note in the diaper bag?" She did not freeze. That was the first thing I noticed. She just turned from the stove and said, "What note?" "A sticky note. I found it last night." Her face changed then. Not dramatically, not enough for anyone else to notice. But after 19 years of marriage, you learn the smallest weather patterns in another person's face. Her eyes moved slightly to the left, then back to mine. "Oh," she said, "probably from daycare." "Daycare writes personal notes now?" Sarah stirred the oatmeal too fast. I don't know, Martin. Maybe one of the teachers thought Lily looked cute. She has your smile, I said. The spoon stopped moving, only for half a second. Then she gave a soft little laugh. That's sweet. Who was it written to? She looked at me then, fully. What are you asking? I wanted to say, I'm asking why my daughter's diaper bag has a love note inside it. Instead, I shrugged. Nothing, just thought it was strange. Sarah went back to stirring, and just like that, breakfast continued. Lily dropped her spoon on the floor 3 times. Sarah complained that we were out of blueberries. I burned my tongue on coffee. A truck delivered a pallet of rock salt to the hardware store at 8:15, and I spent the next 10 hours pretending my life was normal. That is the part nobody warns you about. Suspicion does not stop the world. The register still jams, customers still ask if you carry left-handed drill bits, your baby still needs diapers, your wife still texts you to pick up eggs, and all day the note stays folded in your pocket like a lit match. 3 days later, I found the name. Not from her phone. Sarah guarded that thing now like it contained state secrets. Face down at dinner, screen angled away in bed, new password after 19 years of using our anniversary. I found it because of a photograph. Sarah had taken Lily to a mom and baby wellness morning at the Lakeside Community Center. She posted 3 pictures on Facebook, Lily on a playmat, Sarah holding coffee, and a group photo of mothers sitting in a circle with their babies. I almost scrolled past it. Then I saw the man in the background. He was standing near the doorway, half turned away, holding a stack of folded blankets. Tall. Silver hair. Navy sweater. The kind of man who looked like he had never once had to raise his voice to be heard. I knew him, Dr. Elias Reeves, our fertility doctor. The man who had looked Sarah and me in the eye 2 years earlier and said, I know this has been a long road, but I still believe there is hope. The man who hugged my wife after our final embryo transfer worked. The man who sent flowers when Lily was born. At the time, I thought he was compassionate. Now I enlarged the photo until his face blurred into pixels, and my stomach turned cold. That night, while Sarah slept, I took her phone from the charger. I am not proud of that. People love to judge what they would do before they are standing barefoot in a dark bedroom with their marriage bleeding quietly under the floorboards. Her password had changed, but I knew Sarah. She reused patterns, birthdays, house numbers. Lily's birthday didn't work. Our anniversary didn't work. Then I tried the date of the embryo transfer. The phone unlocked. I stood there in the dark for a moment, feeling worse because I had been right. There were no messages from Elias Reeves, at least none under that name. But there was a contact saved as ER Clinic Billing. I opened it. Empty, no thread, deleted. My hand went numb around the phone. Innocent people do not rename doctors as billing departments and erase conversations. I checked the call log. Nothing. Then I checked recently deleted photos. There were 3. One was Lily asleep in a car seat. One was Sarah sitting at a cafe table with a cappuccino in front of her. The third was a screenshot of a message. Only part of it was visible. I know he loves her. That's what makes this impossible. I sent the screenshot to myself, locked the phone, and put it back exactly where I found it. Then I went downstairs and sat alone in the hardware store office until morning. At 6:20 a.m., I searched for Dr. Elias Reeves online. That is how I found his wife. Her name was Claire Reeves. She had a public profile because she ran a nonprofit that provided grief counseling for families after pregnancy loss. There were pictures of her speaking at fundraisers, holding baskets of donated blankets, standing beside Elias at hospital events. She had kind eyes. That bothered me. It is easier to hate a stranger when they look cruel. I typed a message to her 4 times and deleted it 4 times. Finally, I sent the screenshot and a photo of the sticky note. Then I wrote, I don't know what this means, but I think you may deserve to see it. She responded 12 minutes later, Where are you? I gave her the hardware store address. At 11:03 a.m., Claire Reeves walked into Cole & Sons Hardware, wearing a camel coat, black gloves, and the expression of someone who had already been grieving before she arrived. She did not introduce herself at first. She just stood between the snow shovels and furnace filters and said, "How old is your daughter?" 8 months. Claire closed her eyes. When she opened them, they were wet. I was afraid of that. I locked the front door and flipped the sign to close for lunch, even though it was not lunch. My employee, Pete, looked confused from the paint aisle, but I told him to take an early break. Claire and I sat in the little office behind the register, the one my father used to smoke cigars in before everyone decided indoor smoke was not charming anymore. She placed a folder on my desk. "I've known about Sarah for almost a year," she said. My throat tightened. "Known what?" Claire looked at me with something worse than pity. "That my husband was in love with your wife." I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, because the sentence was too clean for what it did to me. In love? That's what he called it. I stared at the folder. What do you call it? She looked down at her hands. A collapse. Then she opened the folder. There were printed emails, hotel receipts, parking validations from Grand Rapids, a photograph of Sarah and Elias sitting in a booth at a restaurant by the water, his hand covering hers. I could not move. Claire spoke quietly, almost professionally, like she had rehearsed this so she would not fall apart. At first, I thought it started after Lily was born. Then I found older messages. It began during treatment. I looked up sharply. No. I'm sorry. No! But she had already slid the next page toward me. It was an email. Sarah had written it. I don't know how to talk to Martin anymore. Every month we fail, I feel like less of a woman. You're the only person who doesn't look at me like I'm broken. I read it twice, then a third time. The room around me seemed to lose sound. I remembered that year. I remembered Sarah crying in the bathroom. I remembered not knowing what to say. I remembered fixing the loose stair rail instead of sitting beside her, because practical work was easier than helplessness. I had not been cruel. But maybe I had been absent in ways I did not recognize. That thought hurt. But not as much as the next page. A message from Elias. If she has my eyes, we'll know God has a strange sense of mercy. I stood so fast the chair hit the wall behind me. Claire did not move. She had probably reacted the same way when she first read it. I walked into the stockroom and put both hands against a shelf full of paint thinner and work gloves. I tried to breathe. I tried to count. I tried to be a man my father would not be ashamed of, but all I could see was Lily. Lily laughing in her high chair. Lily asleep on my chest during a Tigers game. Lily reaching for my beard with both hands. My daughter. Maybe not my daughter. When I returned to the office, Claire had closed the folder. "There's something else," she said. I shook my head. "I don't think I can take something else." I don't think either of us can. But it exists anyway. She pulled out a small envelope. Inside was a photocopy of a clinic document, consent forms, treatment dates, embryo transfer notes. I didn't understand at first. Then Claire said, "Elias had access to every part of your fertility process." The words entered the room slowly, not like a bomb, like smoke. "What are you saying?" "I don't know," she whispered. "That's the problem." I sat down. For the first time since finding the note, I felt something colder than jealousy. Fear. Not fear that my wife had cheated. Fear that the story was bigger than cheating. Fear that Lily's beginning, the most sacred thing in my life, had been touched by people who thought love gave them permission to play God. That evening, I went home with the folder hidden under the spare tire in my truck. Sarah was in the living room, sitting cross-legged on the rug, helping Lily stack soft blocks. She looked up when I came in. "You're late." "Inventory issue." "Everything okay?" No, nothing was okay. But Lily turned toward me, lifted both arms, and made that urgent little sound babies make when they have decided you belong to them. I picked her up. She pressed her sticky hand against my cheek. I nearly broke in half. Over the next week, I became two people. One Martin went to work, ordered snowblowers, joked with customers, changed Lily's diapers, kissed Sarah goodnight. The other Martin lived in a locked room inside my chest, reading the same documents over and over. Claire and I met twice more, Once in a diner off US 31 where nobody knew us. Once in her parked car outside a closed pharmacy during a rainstorm. She brought more evidence each time. Messages, financial records, donations Elias had quietly moved through his nonprofit accounts, clinic travel reimbursements that made no sense. In one voice memo, Claire played it with shaking hands. Elias's voice filled the car. "I don't regret loving Sarah. I regret the paperwork." The paperwork. That was what he called my family. Claire turned the memo off. Rain slid down the windshield between us. For a long time, neither of us spoke. Finally, I said, "I need to know if Lily is mine." Claire nodded. "I know." The DNA test arrived in a white box with no logo. I took the cheek swab while Sarah was grocery shopping. Lily laughed when I did it because she thought the cotton swab was a game. That almost killed me. She trusted me completely, and I was collecting evidence from her mouth. I mailed the kit from a post office 3 towns over like a criminal. Then I waited. 10 days. 10 days is not long unless you are waiting to learn whether the child who saved your life belongs to you. During those 10 days, Sarah became strangely tender. Maybe guilt makes people affectionate. Maybe fear does. She made my favorite pot roast. She touched my shoulder when she passed behind me. She asked if I wanted to watch old episodes of The West Wing after Lily went down. Once, in bed, she reached for my hand under the blanket. I let her hold it. That was the cruelest part. My body still remembered being her husband. My hand still fit hers. 19 years do not disappear because you find paper in a folder. They remain in your muscles, in the side of the bed you sleep on, in the way you know exactly how someone takes their coffee. On the 8th night, Lily woke up at 2:14 a.m. I carried her downstairs and warmed a bottle while snow tapped softly against the kitchen window. First snow of the season. Too early to stick, but enough to dust the deck white. I sat in the rocking chair by the Christmas cactus Sarah's mother had given us 12 years earlier. Lily drank half the bottle, then fell asleep against me. Her breath warmed my neck. I whispered, "Please be mine." Then I hated myself for saying it, because she was not a possession. She was not evidence. She was a child, and whatever adults had done, she was innocent. The DNA results came on a Monday morning. I saw the email while unloading a pallet of ice melt behind the store. For 20 minutes, I could not open it. I just stood in the cold with my gloves on, staring at my phone like it might bite me. Finally, I drove to the marina. In November, the boats were already shrink-wrapped, white and ghost-like in their winter covers. The lake was gray, the sky was gray, everything looked paused. I opened the result. Probability of paternity, 99.9998%. I read it once, then again. Then I sat in my truck and cried so hard my chest hurt. Lily was mine. My daughter was mine. The relief was so violent it felt like grief. Then came the anger, not hot anger, not the kind that makes you shout, a deep, steady anger. Because Sarah had let me wonder. Because Elias had let me wonder. Because for 10 days I had looked at my daughter and felt terror where only love should have been. I called Claire. "She's mine," I said. Claire exhaled. "Oh, Martin." For a second, I heard her crying too. Then she said, "I found something else." I almost laughed. Of course she had. That is the thing about lies. Once you open one drawer, the whole house starts revealing itself. What? Elias is receiving an ethics award next Friday. I wiped my face with my sleeve. What kind of award? Physician leadership, the Fertility Center's annual donor dinner. I looked out at the gray lake. Claire continued. Board members will be there, hospital administrators, donors, legal counsel. I knew what she was asking without her asking. I also knew what it meant. Once truth enters a room like that, it does not leave quietly. For 3 days, I told myself I would not go. I had Lily to think about, a business, a mortgage, a wife I still did not know how to stop loving. I did not want to become a man who mistook revenge for justice. On Thursday night, I almost deleted Claire's number. Then Sarah came downstairs after taking a call in the bedroom. Her face was pale. I was sitting at the kitchen table, feeding Lily mashed sweet potatoes. Most of it was on the bib, some was in her hair, none of it seemed to be in her mouth. Sarah looked at me and said, too casually, "Elias called." I held the spoon still. "Doctor." "Reeves?" She swallowed. "He said there may be some old clinic records being reviewed. Routine audit." "Why would he call you?" Her eyes filled instantly, not with tears, with fear. And that was the moment I knew, she knew I knew. Maybe not everything, but enough. I set the spoon down. Sarah whispered, "Martin." I looked at Lily. She was smearing orange sweet potato across her tray, delighted with herself. "Not in front of her," I said. Sarah covered her mouth with one hand. That night, she slept in the guest room. Or pretended to. I sat awake in the living room until dawn, listening to the furnace breathe. The donor dinner was held at a restored hotel near the waterfront. Old brick. Warm lights, valet parking, men in dark suits. Women in dresses that looked simple until you realized they cost more than your monthly insurance payment. I wore the same navy suit I had worn to my father's funeral. Claire met me near the coat check. She looked composed in a black dress and pearl earrings, but her hands were cold when she hugged me. "Are you sure?" she asked. "No." That was the honest answer. Across the ballroom, Elias Reeves stood beneath a banner with the Fertility Center logo on it, shaking hands, smiling gently, playing the role of the healer. Sarah was with him. Not beside him in an obvious way. That would have been too easy. She stood 3 people away, near a silent auction table, wearing a burgundy dress I had never seen before. Her hair was pinned back. She looked elegant and terrified. When she saw me, all the color left her face. Elias saw me a second later. His smile did not vanish. That was what frightened me most. He was practiced. He crossed the room slowly, carrying a glass of water. "Martin," he said warmly, "I didn't expect to see you here." "No," I said. "I imagine not." Claire stepped beside me. For the first time, Elias's expression shifted, only slightly. "Claire." She did not answer. Elias glanced toward Sarah, then back to me. "This is not the place." I nodded. That seems to be a popular sentence among people who create situations in public and then ask for privacy. His jaw tightened. "Let's step outside." We moved into a side corridor near the old hotel's framed historical photographs. The ballroom noise softened behind us. Sarah followed at a distance, arms wrapped around herself. Elias spoke first. "I understand you're upset." That sentence told me everything. Upset is what you are when a snowblower breaks after warranty. This was not upset. "You understand?" I asked. He lowered his voice. "Martin, I cared for Sarah during an extremely vulnerable period. Boundaries became complicated." Claire made a sound that was almost a laugh. "Boundaries became complicated," she repeated. Elias ignored her. I looked at him. "Did you tamper with our treatment?" For the first time, his face went still. Sarah whispered, "Martin, no." I turned to her. "No what?" "No, don't ask." Or "No, he didn't." She started crying. Elias stepped in smoothly. "There is absolutely no question that Lily is your biological child." My stomach dropped. Because I had not told him I took a DNA test. "How would you know that?" I asked. Silence. Claire looked at him. Sarah looked at the floor. And in that silence, the shape of the truth became clear. Maybe he had not altered anything. Maybe Lily was biologically mine, as the test said. But Elias had known enough, feared enough, controlled enough to speak with certainty when he should have known nothing at all. I took out my phone. I recorded that. Elias's calm finally cracked. "Martin, be very careful." "No," Claire said quietly. "You be careful." Then she opened her clutch and removed a sealed envelope. At that exact moment, 2 people approached from the ballroom. One was a hospital attorney. The other was a board member Claire had contacted earlier that week. Elias saw them and understood. His face changed. Not into remorse, into calculation. The attorney looked at Claire. Mrs. Reeves? Claire handed her the envelope. These are copies. The originals are with my lawyer. Elias said her name sharply. Claire. She looked at him then. Really looked. And I saw 30 years end in her eyes. The attorney opened the envelope enough to see the first pages. Emails, records, receipts. The voice memo transcript. The financial transfers through donor accounts. The strange reimbursements connected to fake conferences. This was no longer only an affair. That is the thing powerful men often forget. Morality can be ignored if the institution finds it inconvenient. Money cannot. A few guests had begun to notice the gathering in the corridor. Conversations softened. People glanced over wine glasses. Sarah stood frozen, tears running silently down her face. Elias leaned toward me, voice low and dangerous. You have no idea what you're doing. I looked at him. I'm telling the truth. He smiled then, a small, ugly smile. The truth? Your wife came to me because you made her feel dead. Sarah flinched. I felt the words hit. Not because they were fully true, because there was enough pain inside them to wound. Elias continued, losing control now. She needed someone who could actually see her. You think paying bills and fixing gutters makes you a husband? Claire whispered, Stop. But he didn't. He turned toward Sarah. And you, don't stand there like some victim. You wanted every bit of it until it became inconvenient. The hallway went silent. Sarah looked at him as if she had never seen him before. Maybe she hadn't. Maybe affairs survive only because people meet each other in shadows. Full light makes everyone look different. The hospital attorney said, Dr. Reeves, we need you to come with us. He straightened his jacket. This is absurd. The board member's voice was calm. It may be. That's why we'll review it formally. Security did not drag him out. No one shouted. No one threw a drink. Real consequences are usually quieter than fantasy. Elias walked away with the attorney and board member, his face pale but controlled. The award ceremony did not happen, at least not for him. Claire stood beside me, breathing like someone who had been underwater too long. I thought I'd feel better, she said. I nodded. Me too. Sarah approached slowly. Martin. I looked at her. For 19 years, that voice had meant home. Now it sounded like a locked door. Not here, I said. We left through the side entrance. Outside, the November air smelled like lake water and wet pavement. Streetlights reflected on the sidewalk. Somewhere nearby, people were laughing as they left a restaurant, unaware that other lives were ending 20 feet away. Sarah stood with her arms wrapped around herself. I never meant for this to happen, she said. I laughed once. Not cruelly, just from exhaustion. People always say that after doing the things that make it happen. She cried harder. It started after the third failed transfer. I was so angry at my body, at God, at you, at everyone. I said nothing. You stopped talking to me, Martin. I didn't know how. I know that now. But you found someone who did. She nodded, barely. He made me feel like I wasn't broken. I looked toward the dark water beyond the hotel lights. And then I didn't know how to stop needing that. That was probably the most honest thing she had said. It did not excuse anything, but it sounded true. Did you love him, I asked. Sarah closed her eyes. I thought I did. That answer hurt less than I expected. Maybe because by then love was not the central question anymore. Trust was. Did you ever think Lily might not be mine? She covered her face. That was the answer. I stepped back. Not dramatically, just one step. But she noticed. Martin, I was terrified. So was I. I wanted to tell you, but you didn't. No. You let me love her while wondering if I had the right to. Sarah sobbed then. The sound should have moved me. Part of it did. That was the problem. Even after betrayal, compassion does not disappear neatly. It lingers in the corners, making clean decisions harder. But Lily's face came into my mind. her little dimple, her hand on my cheek, and something inside me settled. I can forgive a lot of pain, I said. I can even understand loneliness. But you let another man stand close enough to our daughter's beginning that I had to question the most sacred thing in my life. Sarah whispered, I'm sorry. I believe you. She looked up, hopeful for one terrible second. Then I said, but I don't think I can stay married to you. The hope left her face. We stood there in the cold for a long time. No shouting, no final speech, just the sound of cars passing behind us. 6 months later, Cole & Sons hardware smelled like spring rain and grass seed. The divorce was not cinematic, it was paperwork. Mediation, custody calendars, bank accounts, a painful conversation about who kept the dining table, a quiet argument over Christmas ornaments that somehow hurt more than the legal fees. Sarah moved into a small rental house near the elementary school. I stayed in our house because Lily knew the nursery, and because I could not bear the thought of repainting the walls yet. Elias lost his position within 2 months. The official statement used phrases like policy violations, financial irregularities, and breach of professional boundaries. Clean institutional language for messy human damage. Claire filed for divorce. She later sent me one text from an airport. Moving to Portland to be near my sister. I hope Lily grows up surrounded by peace. I wrote back, thank you for helping me find the truth. She replied, truth is expensive. Spend it wisely. I still think about that because she was right. Truth can free you. It can also make you cruel if you start worshiping it like a weapon. There were nights after the divorce when I wanted to tell everyone everything. I wanted Sarah's friends to know, her mother, the women at daycare who still smiled politely at both of us during pickup. I wanted the world to understand I had not failed first. But then Lily would fall asleep against my chest, and I would remember she would someday inherit whatever story we left behind. So I chose carefully. Not perfectly, carefully. Sarah and I learned to speak in short, civil sentences. Diaper rash cream is in the side pocket. She skipped her afternoon nap. Please don't give her strawberries yet. At first, every exchange felt like pressing on a bruise. Then, slowly, it became routine. One Saturday in June, Lily took her first steps in my living room. 3 uneven steps from the coffee table to my knees. I cheered so loudly she got scared and sat down. I almost called Sarah out of instinct. Then I stopped. Then I called anyway. She answered on the second ring. What's wrong? Nothing, I said. She walked. Silence. Then Sarah started crying. I held the phone so she could hear Lily laughing. That was when I understood something I had not wanted to understand. Divorce ends a marriage. It does not end shared parenthood. It does not erase every tender thing. It just forces tenderness to live under stricter rules. By autumn, I started sleeping again. Not every night, but enough. I reopened the fishing cabin my father used to take me to near Torch Lake. I cleaned the gutters. I replaced the warped porch step. I taught Lily to say hammer, though it came out hamma, and Pete at the store declared her officially ready for payroll. Some mornings, grief still found me, usually in stupid places. The cereal aisle, the towel section at Target, the old booth at the diner where Sarah and I used to split cherry pie after church. But grief changed shape. At first, it was a wall, then a weather system. Then, eventually, a room I could walk through without staying. The last real conversation Sarah and I had about the affair happened the week before Lily's 2nd birthday. She came by to drop off a stuffed rabbit Lily refused to sleep without. Rain was falling hard, the kind that makes the porch light look blurry. Sarah stood at the door after handing me the rabbit. "You look better," she said. "I am better." She nodded. "I'm glad." There was a time when I would have used that opening to hurt her. I had sentences ready for months, sharp ones, true ones. But Lily was inside yelling hamma at a plastic toolbox. So I only said, "Are you?" Sarah looked toward the living room. "I'm trying." I believed that too. She wiped her eyes quickly. "I don't expect you to forgive me." "I'm working on it." Her face changed. Not relief exactly, something smaller. "Why?" I look back at Lily. Because I don't want the worst thing you did to become the center of who I am. Sarah cried quietly then. I did not hug her. Some boundaries are mercy too, but I did say, I hope you get well, Sarah. And I meant it. After she left, I sat on the living room floor with Lily and built a tower out of wooden blocks. She knocked it down immediately, then clapped like destruction was an achievement. Maybe at 2 years old it is. Maybe at 55, rebuilding is. I still have the yellow sticky note, not because I enjoy pain, because sometimes I need to remember the exact size of the thing that changed my life. It was not large. It did not look dangerous. Just 10 words on cheap paper. She has your smile. I thought about you both all day. For a long time, I thought that note was the beginning of my life falling apart. Now I think it was the beginning of my life refusing to keep lying to itself. Betrayal changes you. It makes you suspicious. It makes you tired. It makes ordinary rooms feel unsafe for a while. But it can also show you what still remains after the lies burn away. For me, what remained was a little girl with one dimple, a hardware store that still smelled like cedar and motor oil, a lake that turned silver before storms, and a version of myself I had not met yet. A quieter man, a sadder man, but not a ruined one. And maybe that is the part nobody tells you when trust breaks late in life. You do not go back. But if you are patient, if you refuse to let bitterness raise your children or sleep in your bed forever, you may still go forward. Not cleanly, not quickly, but honestly. And sometimes, honestly is the first real peace you have had in years.